Welcome to week 15 of the F.I.R.E travel series. I created this series prior to us traveling to Europe for 3 months. If you're new to my channel, my name is Jake. My wife and I retired from our 9-to-5 job by investing into real estate and the stock market so that we could achieve financial independence. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. Now this is the last and final video of this F.I.R.E travel series, and as you can imagine, my voice is basically shot. I've been recording nonstop for these last couple of days and editing all these videos. Normally I do one video a week, and now I've done like 15 videos this weekend, so my head is just spinning and yeah, so it's been quite the experience. But if you've watched all 15 videos, I just want to say thank you so much. You know, I've been talking about this with my wife. It's like, as I'm recording these videos, it feels so weird, you know, because I want it to sound like, you know, this week we did this, but I'm recording it in advance. And so I'm using different tenses. I'm talking about the future, you know, talking about now and the future, about the past. It's my head is like spinning. And after doing this like 15 times, I'm like, what is going on? But anyways, the last and final week of this series, and the next week we'll be back to normal, and I'll share some updates on our trip and all that fun stuff. But in week 15, we stayed around home in northern Utah and visited my family and friends. We went on a few hikes, but nothing too crazy. Now, where I live, I'm like, 5 minutes away from 5 different hiking trails. So I absolutely love where we're at and love going hiking. And this week I turned 39 years old. This is the last year that I can say that I'm in my 30s. It feels really weird, but like everyone before me, I'm coping with this new reality, and the back pains have already started, and the knees starting to hurt. It's part of life, I guess, but it feels really weird to almost be in my 40s. If you don't know my story, I worked for 10 years in corporate, in a corporate job working in software sales. I never had more than like 2 weeks off at the same time to go on a vacation or just to take time off in general. I always had jobs, there was never, for 10 years, I never had one day in between working another job. The day that I quit was the next day that I started the next job. So for 10 years, never had a day off, never had, in between jobs, and never had more than 2 weeks off at any point in time while working. Being able to take off 15 weeks and fully focus on family and friends has been something that I've only dreamt about. I've dreamt about this for years. And in fact, it all started with a dream many years ago. And after years and years of intentional saving, investing, changing our habits, not going on expensive trips like this, while pursuing financial independence, we were able to turn this dream into a reality. I just want to make sure that when I talk about this amazing experience, it was at least for us an amazing experience, I just want you all to know that I don't take it for granted. And I'm just very grateful for what we have. And I'm grateful for YouTube for allowing us to even make this a reality, right? If it wasn't for YouTube, I'd have to change course entirely. I'd have to either get a real barista job and go, like barista in the sense of going and working at a coffee shop or, a part-time hardware store, or getting a full-time job again for another couple of years so that we could do this. But yeah, I don't know how else to say it. I'm just so very grateful and thankful for this opportunity, and I don't take it for granted. All right, now let's take a look at the last question here of this series. Someone asked the question, what are the benefits of investing in dividend ETFs versus individual stocks? When I think about this, like with anything in life, there's pros and cons to every decision. The biggest benefit of investing into individual dividend stocks or stocks in general is you are hand selecting a company that you believe in, and you get all the upside and all the downside that comes with that decision. As I've gotten older and now living off of my dividend portfolio, I've been more and more risk averse when it comes to my my portfolio. When I first started creating my YouTube channel, it was very different. Even 6 years ago, I was much more willing to take on risk. And that's changed entirely, almost entirely. And I cannot afford for a company to go belly up, regardless of how great it was in the past. So when I say the biggest benefit is you get all the upside and the downside, you can't pick and choose what that company will do in the future. All you can do is pick the company and hope for the best. Now, obviously, while still being able to change your mind, but you get what I'm saying. So the biggest pro of investing in individual stocks is also the biggest con. And I call this the boom or bust way of investing. Now, the biggest benefit of investing into ETFs is you don't have to pick the winner. The market picks that for you. Depending on the ETF will screen companies based on specific criteria and rules, and based on this, companies will be included into the basket, or in this case, the ETF. So with ETFs, you get a little bit of everything, and in my opinion, this is the biggest benefit. Now, in some cases, you could argue that you're also getting the worst companies as well. Well, that is true, and it's not true because these companies are only included because they meet the criteria and the rules of the index. So if you don't agree with a company being in the index, you need to reevaluate if you should invest into that ETF and its specific criteria and rules. This is referred to as the fund methodology. So the biggest con of investing into dividend ETFs is you also get companies in the index that may end up not panning out, but when the index does a reconstitution or a shuffle of its holdings, those bad companies will fall out and be replaced. So it's not something that you have to consciously manage or think about on a year-to-year basis. All you have to do is pick the index with the criteria and rules and methodology that you agree with and you want to invest in long term. And the simple fact is, you don't know if today's winners are going to be tomorrow's losers and today's losers are going to be tomorrow's winners. That's the dilemma. And ETFs solve that problem. And so that's why dividend ETFs or ETFs in general can be so powerful, is you just don't know what's going to happen in the future. You don't know how companies are going to get disrupted and so forth. So to recap, with individual stocks, you get both the high highs and the low lows. And with ETFs, you get lower highs and lower lows. As I like to put it, I think most people would be better off focusing on ETFs, but I see nothing wrong with owning individual stocks if done responsibly. It really comes down to your goals and risk tolerance. And so with that, everybody, this marks the end of the F.I.R.E travel series. I hope you enjoyed following along with us. I plan to share more pictures and videos of our trip in next week's video. So with that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see everybody in next week's video.